It took exactly 24 hours. Just one spin of the clock, and my life, my miserable, painfully average, invisible life, was completely obliterated and replaced with something out of a fantasy. Think about the most earth-shattering, life-altering event you can imagine. Now multiply it by the kind of fame that has paparazzi staking out your parents' house, has Taylor Swift's producer calling your personal phone, and has your face plastered on billboards in Times Square, all before you've even had time to properly process that you missed your final high school history exam. 24 hours. That's all it took for me to go from being the quiet kid in the back of the class who can actually sing, I guess, to being the globally recognized, viral sensation, Kai Nova. But here's the thing. It wasn't some calculated marketing stunt. It wasn't a carefully managed debut. It was a mistake. A massive, horrifying, embarrassing, wonderful, life-ruining, life-making mistake. The kind of mistake that should have ended my future, but instead, it became a phenomenon that netted me a multi-million-dollar record deal and enough enemies to last a lifetime. Was I wrong to seize the opportunity when I knew it was based on a complete and utter lie? Was I wrong to let the world believe something that wasn't true just to escape the hell I was living in? You tell me. You tell me if you would have done the exact same thing. My name is Kai. Well, it was just Kai back then. Before the Nova. And before everything went insane, I was just surviving. I was 18, living in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment with my single mother, who worked 2 shifts just to keep the rent paid, and my perpetually disgruntled older brother, Liam, who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle. I loved my mom fiercely, and I knew she did the best she could, but our life was perpetually gray. My brother, Liam, was the reason I retreated into music. He was an aspiring DJ, a wannabe producer who spent every waking moment in his room with headphones on, convinced he was the next big thing. He was also a bully, not physically, but in that insidious, soul-crushing way that leaves no marks but makes you doubt your own existence. He knew I could sing. He knew I had talent. He'd overheard me practicing in the shower or late at night with my cheap, battered acoustic guitar. And he weaponized it. "You'll never make it," he'd sneer, eyes glued to his screen. "You don't have the look. You don't have the connections. You'll be serving lattes while I'm headlining festivals." He'd even record me sometimes secretly, just to play it back for his friends and make them laugh at my overly dramatic vibrato. It was cruel, but it fueled me. Music was my escape, my secret superpower. I had a tiny little laptop, a cheap microphone I'd saved up for, and a secret folder on my hard drive filled with demos, songs about the gray city, the crushing pressure, the feeling of being overlooked. They were raw, they were emotional, and they were purely mine. The biggest secret, the one that sets this entire story in motion, was the track. I'd spent 6 months on it. It was a synth-heavy, emotionally charged pop anthem called Invisible. A song about feeling like a ghost in your own life. I used a pitch shifter to change my voice slightly, making it sound a little deeper, a little more processed, just in case my brother ever stumbled upon it. It was perfect. I'd poured my whole being into it. The day everything changed started like any other. An early morning shift at the coffee shop, smelling like stale espresso, followed by another 4 hours of my brother's obnoxious, repetitive beats thumping through the apartment walls. I was exhausted, stressed, and desperately needed to upload my application for the State University music program. The only way I saw a path out of the grind. I went to my room, opened my laptop, and that's when I saw it. Liam had been using my laptop. Why? Because his ancient machine was finally crashing, and he needed a fast upload for a new DJ mix he'd spent all night perfecting. He'd been working on it the entire morning, and he hadn't fully logged out. I saw his open file, labeled Liam_mix_007_final. My music folder, which I had carefully hidden inside a subfolder named Old School Essays, was right there. I started downloading the application form, but my eyes were drawn to the date on his file. It was supposed to be uploaded to a major online music sharing platform for his producer friends to review. The deadline was in 30 minutes. My heart started to pound with a sick, intoxicating mix of fear and sheer reckless impulse. This platform was the place. Major labels scouted there. It was Liam's entire world. In a moment of madness, a lifetime of resentment and pain finally boiling over, I did something completely insane. I deleted his Liam_mix_007_ final. And then in its place, I renamed my most polished secret demo, Invisible, with the exact same file name. Liam_mix_007_ final. The file size was similar. The cover art, which he always kept a generic, minimalist black square, was already in the folder. He was racing against the clock. He wouldn't check the file contents. He wouldn't. He just wouldn't. I closed the laptop, tucked it back under my bed, and walked out of the apartment to run an errand for my mom, shaking like a leaf. I was terrified. This was sabotage, pure and simple. I expected him to realize the mistake. Maybe a few people would hear it, it would be awkward, and then it would be over. The worst-case scenario? He'd kill me. Literally. I came home 6 hours later, and the apartment was eerily silent. Liam wasn't in his room. My mom was home, sitting at the kitchen table, but she wasn't doing her usual routine. She was staring, wide-eyed, at her phone, her hands trembling. "Kai," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Have you seen the internet?" I was sure it was about Liam. He must have found out. He must have posted a rant. But when I looked at the screen, it wasn't Liam's face. It was a screenshot of the music platform's trending chart. At number 1, surging past established artists and professional uploads, was Liam_mix_007_ final. The comments were a firestorm. Who is this guy? The bassline is insane. This is the song of the summer. And then my mother pointed to the view count. It was over 500,000. In 6 hours. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. It wasn't just trending, it was exploding. Then she pointed to a news headline. Mystery artist Liam breaks the internet with viral anthem. And that's when the dominoes started falling. Liam walked in an hour later. He wasn't yelling. He was pale, sweating and shaking, but with a horrifying, manic excitement in his eyes. "Kai, you won't believe it. I've been getting calls. I think one of my old mixes must have accidentally gotten uploaded, but they think it's a new one. Labels are calling. Atlantic called Kai. I don't know what mix it is, but it's going nuts." The delusion was already setting in. He was so desperate for success, so utterly convinced of his own genius, that he didn't even stop to question why a mix he didn't recognize was getting universal praise. He didn't even listen to the track. He just saw the numbers and assumed it was his destiny. I said nothing. The lie was born not from my confession, but from his immediate, greedy appropriation of the success. He was now Liam, the overnight sensation. The music was mine, the credit was his. For the next 18 hours, I watched as Liam's life became a spectacle. He gave a bewildered, stammering interview to a major music blog, using my own vague statements about the song's inspiration as his own. He was a terrible liar, but the world didn't care. They cared about the song. My song. My lyrics, my melody, my voice, slightly pitched down, yes, but undeniably me. Within 24 hours of that fateful click, the streaming numbers hit 5 million. The track was in the global top 50. Liam, basking in the reflected glory of my talent, was signing an NDA with a major label for a preliminary meeting. I was sitting in the corner, invisible again, watching my brother steal my dream, my moment, and my life. He was a fraud, and I was the ghostwriter, the secret architect of his stolen fame. The pain was unbearable, but the sheer absurdity of the situation was starting to infect me. It was too big to be just an anonymous upload now. The lie had grown monstrous. It needed a new lie to sustain it. The climax was set the next day. The label meeting was the final step before the official contract. Liam had been coached by a low-level manager, but he knew nothing about the music, the production, or the technical side. I knew he would crumble under scrutiny. I knew the label executives, the sharks of the industry, would see through him the moment they asked him to explain the intricacies of the synth patch on the bridge. That's when the second moment of madness hit. I realized my escape wasn't just about getting out. It was about tearing down the lie he built with my hands. So that's the situation I was in. My bully brother was about to sign a massive record deal for my song. He was about to escape poverty and become a pop star. All based on a music file he stole. Or rather, a music file I replaced, and a career he was absolutely unqualified for. And I, the actual artist, was still folding laundry and cleaning up his messes. I was faced with a choice. I could stay silent, let him have the money, and be miserable but financially secure by association. Or I could blow up the entire thing, expose the lie, and risk not only Liam's fury but also alienating my mother, and perhaps missing my one chance at fame. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let him sign the deal? Or would you have walked into that boardroom and revealed the truth? The climax was set the next day. The label meeting was the final step before the official contract. Liam had been coached by a low-level manager, but he knew nothing about the music, the production, or the technical side. I knew he would crumble under scrutiny. I knew the label executives, the sharks of the industry, would see through him the moment they asked him to explain the intricacies of the synth patch on the bridge. That's when the second moment of madness hit. I realized my escape wasn't just about getting out. It was about tearing down the lie he built with my hands. So that's the situation I was in. My bully brother was about to sign a massive record deal for my song. He was about to escape poverty and become a pop star. All based on a music file he stole. Or rather, a music file I replaced, and a career he was absolutely unqualified for. And I, the actual artist, was still folding laundry and cleaning up his messes. I was faced with a choice. I could stay silent, let him have the money, and be miserable but financially secure by association. Or I could blow up the entire thing, expose the lie, and risk not only Liam's fury but also alienating my mother, and perhaps missing my one chance at fame. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have let him sign the deal? Or would you have walked into that boardroom and revealed the truth? The label meeting was held in a glass-walled conference room high above the city. I was there, brought along by Liam because, as he put it, I needed my little brother to carry my bags. His arrogance was boundless. The meeting started. Liam mumbled his way through introductions. Then the senior VP, a terrifying woman named Ms. Albright, slid the contract across the table. It was for 3 albums, an advance of $2 million, and an immediate global rollout. Liam's hand was hovering over the pen. Ms. Albright looked at him, a predatory smile on her face. "Liam," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "Before you sign, can you just walk us through the inspiration for Invisible? It's such a deeply personal track." Liam cleared his throat, his face sweating. He was frozen. He had no clue. He was about to try and pull some fake emotional garbage out of thin air. That was my cue. I put down the briefcase I was holding and stepped forward, placing my hand flat on the contract, right over the signature line. Everyone turned to look at me, the quiet kid with the cheap sweater. "The inspiration," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "came from feeling like I was invisible. Like no one saw me, no one heard me, especially not the person standing next to me." I looked Liam right in the eye. He was turning purple. Ms. Albright just watched, utterly fascinated. "The synth patch on the bridge," I continued, addressing the producer, "is a custom-layered detuned saw wave, run through a modulated phaser and a slight tape delay, designed to mimic the feeling of a panic attack." I was speaking fluent music. Liam, the fraud, didn't even know what a phaser was. "And the vocals," I finished, taking a deep breath and letting my voice shift, intentionally dropping the slight pitch correction. "The vocals are mine." I then sang the opening line of Invisible. Right there, in that silent, terrifying boardroom, my full unadulterated voice echoing off the glass walls. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet, it was a black hole of shock. Liam finally erupted. "Are you insane? Get out. This is my deal." He tried to pull my arm, but Ms. Albright raised a hand, stopping him cold. She never took her eyes off me. "Run that back," she commanded, not to Liam but to the producer. "Put his voice through the original track." The producer, an old pro, quickly complied. The room was filled with the sound of my voice, now perfectly matching the viral sensation. The only difference being the subtle, almost undetectable pitch correction I had used for my demo. The jig was up. It took 2 minutes for Ms. Albright to have security escort a screaming, violently thrashing Liam out of the building. He was disgraced, exposed, and stripped of his borrowed glory in front of the biggest names in the industry. Then Ms. Albright turned to me. "Kid," she said, a wicked, admiring glint in her eyes. "You just pulled the most viral-worthy stunt I've seen in a decade. A little brother hijacking his older brother's fake fame with a boardroom exposé? That's gold. Pure, unadulterated content. You are exactly what we need." Within the next 6 hours, I was back in that room, signing the exact same contract. My stage name, which I pulled out of thin air, was Kai Nova. The story was already leaking, the true story. The headlines were even bigger now. The real Liam revealed. Teenage brother exposes fraud in shocking boardroom stunt. The 24-hour cycle was complete. I was a global star. Liam's career, which had lasted 48 hours, was over. He was a laughingstock. The aftermath was brutal but strangely satisfying. My mother was torn. She was horrified by the deceit and the family rift, but she was also incredibly proud of my talent and relieved that our financial struggles were finally over. Liam, naturally, hasn't spoken to me since. He tried to sue, claiming I stole his concept, but the evidence, my raw vocal takes, the original project files, was undeniable. He faded back into obscurity, forced to face the reality that he was a mediocre DJ, not a pop star. I, on the other hand, was instantly thrust into a world of nonstop work, recording, touring, and interviews. The $2 million advance was real. The fame was real. And the attention was suffocating. I went from being invisible to being seen by literally everyone. And sometimes late at night on the tour bus, I missed the quiet desperation of my old life. But the freedom, the sheer, intoxicating freedom of being validated, of being heard, that's worth every sacrifice. The lie was the key that unlocked the truth. I had to become a villain for one day to finally become the hero of my own story. It's been a year since that day, and I've released my debut album, Gone Platinum, and am currently headlining a sold-out tour. The irony is that my brother's failure, his immense arrogance, was the launchpad for my success. It wasn't the song that went viral, it was the drama. It was the revenge. It was the story of the quiet kid finally taking back what was his. And that's the real moral of the story, I guess. Sometimes, the most incredible opportunities are disguised as the most horrifying mistakes. Sometimes, you have to be willing to burn down the entire room just to make sure your voice is the only one left standing. That single, 24-hour period defined my life. It was a choice between continuing to suffer in silence and risking everything to scream the truth. And I chose to scream. I czuja noba. If you listened to this whole insane, unbelievable journey and felt like I did the right thing, then like this video right now. If you think I was too cruel to my brother, tell me why in the comments. I'm truly curious to hear your final thoughts on this whole mess, the theft, the lie, and the explosive truth that made me a pop star overnight. Subscribe to the channel for more unbelievable stories from the deepest corners of the internet. I'll see you all in the next story.